Welcome everyone to another week with Dr. McDougall. We're excited to be here, and I know that you all are excited to be here with us too. And I'm Gustavo Tolosa. I'm here in Dallas, and there is the 3-day intensive weekend there in Santa Rosa, California. I'm sure Dr. McDougall is going to tell you about it, and let's get it going. Dr. McDougall, how are you?
Oh, I'm good because I'm in California.
That's right.
Yeah. Anybody who believes global warming is a hoax, you ought to see if you can get an airplane flight to Miami right now.
Oh my gosh, this is very distressful. I mean, not only this Hurricane Irma, but the one that's coming behind it.
That's what I heard. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there was an editorial in the paper yesterday that said, don't talk about climate change anymore. Talk about climate changed with a D on the end.
We are in it right now.
The question is, can we slow it and stop it?
Well, we know we can.
Do we? Well, we know that we can't if we don't fix the diet.
Right.
There are people who doubt by any means that we can save planet Earth, but not me. I'm an optimist, and I know what the impact of good food can be. And none of the other great global warming, already warmed situation is created. They're never thinking about food. But as we talked about before, and I'm not going to repeat it too often because you're tired of hearing it, is more than half the global warming gases are produced by the livestock industry. Kill those people before they kill us. I mean, really. And I'm not talking about any individuals. I'm talking about an institution as people. Get rid of them. And, they talk about the impact on the environment of beef being 100 times more than potatoes. While Irma's passing over the United States, as it is right now, you think about what in the world could we possibly do to stop this? Because it is happening. What could we do to stop it? You go, oh my goodness, we'd have to do something desperate, like tell people to live off rice and corn and potatoes like they've been doing for, I don't know, a long time, certainly more than 250,000 years.
Centuries.
Yeah. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, it's just to focus the webinar to tell you this is live and real. Turn on the news or look outside your door and see about Irma. I wanted to talk about some other things. Yeah, we are having a weekend, a wonderful weekend. And those of you who are coming, we look forward to seeing you. Mary's excited. I'm excited. I really have a fun planned, intensive weekend. And this would be, let's see, today must be the 7th, so it starts the 8th of September.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And we'll all be there. We've decided this is going to be the best intensive weekend we've ever had. So, hopefully you're signed up and you can get out and here. And if not, we're going to probably do another one in February. And that will also be the best intensive weekend ever.
Yes, and I plan on being there for that one.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll miss you. We'll miss you.
I'm going to miss you all. Yeah.
And our next 10-day program is the end of December. But
right.
That's because we're doing business programs in the meantime. There's something I really can't stop hearing about by email, and I must address again, Gustavo, and it really deserves addressing again because it's become, besides the political problems and the environmental problems and the storms and hurricanes and so on, it is the number one topic on the internet. And that's the PURE study, the study that shows that eating carbohydrates is more harmful for you than eating fat. And I sent you a notice the day this happened. Let's see. I sent it to you. Well, actually, it happened August 29th. The big headlines came out. Pre-publication in the Lancet. They thought it was so important they had to publish it before the issue came out. And that was the PURE study, the prospective cohort study in the Lancet. And it's titled The Association of Fats and Carbohydrate Intake with Cardiovascular Disease and Mortality in 18 Countries on 5 Continents. And so they proved that eating carbohydrate was bad for you. But I said, and I just said one statement, it wasn't enough, I know. I should have written a 5-page review, and I could do that right now because I've had to do a lot of studies since then, so I could give you a 5-page review. But I sent all of you this just to say that I noticed this study that came out, and there's one sentence I put in about the study. This is a study comparing the health of people who eat junk foods in the U.S. and Europe and Asia and Africa. I mean, these are people that live in modern day Earth. These are not people from 30 years ago when many people ate a starch-based diet. Like before 1980, they say in China, where they have very good figures, and by the way, this is one of the places studied, in China, before 1980, 90% of the diet was white rice. You know that I am not a promoter necessarily of white rice. Brown is better, but we've discussed this many times. But that was 1980s. There was 90% of the diet was rice. There was no obesity. There was virtually no type 2 diabetes. And now China, one of the studies included in this peer study, now China boasts that half the population is pre-diabetic. That's in the last 35 years. And 12% are frankly diabetic. So don't tell me about any studies about the modern world, because the modern world is different than the world 30 years ago, thanks to fossil fuels and technology, which has not only driven the food revolution, so that Coca-Cola and other soda pops are the carbohydrates they're talking about in these other countries. They're not talking about starch, rice, corn, and potatoes. Oh, they mentioned white rice. It could be white rice, but they don't really know, but they kind of mentioned it. Anyway, it's things have changed in 35 years. And if you're going to look at data now that is contrived, by the way, by industry, and I'll go into that in a minute, that is contrived by industry, you're going to look at data of people now, you're not going to look at anything comparing what truly healthy diets are compared to the crap, I'm allowed to use that word, that we eat on the American diet, which is the European diet, which is the Australian diet, which is the New Zealand diet, which is the diet of many, most people probably in Asia and Africa now. Getting close to that, and soda pop and candy bars and cakes, and heck, white rice is the best thing they have to eat in these countries. Anyway, all right, so I told you that. I told you the comparisons. Some of you wanted more, and you deserve more, but I gave you enough to get started. I showed you that the consumption of rice has decreased per capita, in the last, say, 30 years. And the consumption of meat and dairy foods, as well as vegetable oils, has doubled. And there's an article that I actually cite here. I believe it's from The Lancet or the British Medical Journal. But you can click on it. It's right there. It shows that worldwide, there is now an epidemic of heart disease, diabetes, etc. Even in those 18 countries on 5 continents, it's now an epidemic because of the change in diet that's occurred. So you can't do any studies comparing one country to another now, because actually some of the poorer countries eat some of the most junk food of all. Think about Mexico. Mexico City used to be a very healthy place. It's now claimed Mexico City is the fattest city in the world. And that's happened in the last 30 years. Anyway, you can go any place in the world to see this. So don't fall into this methodologically designed study to show that carbohydrates are bad. And by the way, they lumped all carbohydrates together. That means sugar and potatoes and sweet potatoes, soda pop and rice and wheat, lumped all together. That carbohydrates are bad and eating a whole bunch of animal foods is good. Even if it were true, ladies and gentlemen, even if it were true that eating all of this rice and corn, etc., was killing you, which is just the opposite, you know that. Think about Irma. Think about the planet. I mean, good grief, would you eat rice to save the world for your grandchildren? I would. I'd get to save myself. All right, so I looked a little deeper, and actually I had some help from my friends. Thank goodness that I have my own email address up there, and any of you who want to write me can write me, and you have. Some nice comments on that article, the peer study from The Lancet, which was published ahead of time. Some nice comments were passed on to me, some ideas about the funding. I talked to you about the funding in the original letter I sent you. I believe I said unrestricted grants from AstraZeneca, Sanofi, various drug companies, unlimited grants. Well, that's cool, but there is a grant from let's see, the grant from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. That's one of the funders, the Heart and Stroke Foundation. You look at the end of the paper. Here's the paper right here. Look at the end of the paper. In addition to all these drug companies, which ought to say, well, I wonder why drug companies are giving all this money to help people understand that it's bad to eat rice, corn, and potatoes. Could it have anything to do with their profit in blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancers, constipation? Oh, how could it possibly be? Well, delving deeper, one of the founders is the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Who are the Heart and Stroke Foundation? Seems pretty innocuous, doesn't it? The Heart and Stroke Foundation. Well, it happens to be funded in part. The Heart and Stroke Foundation funded the study. Now, we don't know how much influence they had, but they're listed there as a study founder. In other words, they gave money. And the Heart and Stroke Foundation is supported by, well, let me see this, the Dairy Farmers of Canada. Yeah, dairyfarmers.com.ca. Dairyfarmers.ca is where you find it. It says about us. Run for farmers, by farmers. Remember, they supported the study. This is the Dairy Farmers of Canada, supporting the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Yes, they do. One of the supporters of this peer study. Yes, it is. Let's see. The purpose is to run for farmers, by farmers. Dairy Farmers of Canada is the voice of the Canadian dairy farmers. That's what it says right here. This is their website. Okay. How about that? What a coincidence. A study saying that you should eat more meat, more dairy, and fewer carbohydrates happen to be funded by the Canadian Dairy Association. Also, some of the, I've had a little time to look into this, but some of the fellow researchers in this paper actually have connections and ongoing grants from the dairy industry, which is not identified. You have to look for it. But I've already found that some of them have strong support for other research from the dairy industry and the meat industry, etc. What do you think? All right, so I didn't do as good a job the first time at sending this information out to you. The other thing I discovered is this paper was strongly supported by Ronald Krauss. Remember Ronald Krauss? That's Dr. Lard. I wrote about Dr. Lard in 2007 in my newsletter. I'm still waiting for Ronald Krauss to respond. He's the head of atherosclerosis research at Oakland. He's a professor at the university, publisher of a great number of studies, which, by the way, their orientation changed after he started receiving his funding from the Cattle Association and the Dairy Association. Ronald Krauss loved this study. Read about Ronald Krauss, Dr. Lard. It's in my 2011 newsletters. Man, if somebody called me Dr. Lard, I'd do something about it. You can call me Dr. Potato. I think lard is an offensive term. Dr. Lard favors this study. Just wanted you to know that. Okay, so you've got the founder here, the Dairy Association. Now you want to find out more about this, the details of the study. I would send you to David Katz. He used to be the president of American College of Lifestyle Medicine. He's been a friend of mine and good man, fighting this battle for a long time, professor, etc. He's a really sharp guy. He writes for the Huffington Post. And if you look up David Katz and Huffington Post, and you look under the peer study, there's an article he did last week on the peer study, the prospective urban and rural epidemiology. That's what peer study stands for. Prospective urban and rural epidemiology. Thank you, Mary. Sure. finally the printer came out with it. This is the Huffington Post. I think that's the, yeah, see, this is the Huffington Post article that you'll find that David, what great timing, Mary. Oh, here's the article I just printed out of the printer on the Huffington Post that you can find that David Katz did, which went into great detail about this particular study. And Dr. Katz, he talks about, being a study of Middle East, South American, African, South Asian people. And he also recognized that these were selected populations of people. In this particular study, they skipped Japan, which has the longest longevity. But they printed another study in the same issue. Actually, it wasn't printed. It was sent pre-publication as an online study. It was so important. They couldn't wait for the regular publication date. They had to send it pre-publication as published ahead of time. But in that same published ahead of time is a study which looks at fruit, vegetable intake, very high fruit and vegetable intake in those same 18 countries. And we'll get to that study in a minute. But just bottom line is that study, which nobody seemed to publicize, same publication date, same journal. That study showed a higher intake of fruits and vegetables in the same 18 countries, same 5 continents, showed a lower mortality, lower cardiovascular intake by those who ate more fruits and vegetables. Well, anyways, David Katz brings out this particular paradox that the one study favoring eating more Coca-Cola and other soda pops and sugars gives you more disease. That's the peer study. It was published along with another study, which we will get to in just a minute, which is about fruit and vegetable intake, which showed less mortality, less heart disease when you ate more fruits and vegetables. Now, figure that out, folks. If you eat more carbohydrate, you eat less fat. That's kind of like a seesaw teeter-totter. It's kind of like the equation. You got to get a total number of calories. Well, if you eat more carbohydrate, like, say, rice and corn and potatoes, then you eat very little meat or fat. Anyway, why did they publicize and get so excited about the study that showed that meat's good for you and dairy is good for you? Excuse me, Dairy Association, thank you very much for emphasizing that study. Well, anyways, David Katz, I showed you, look at it on Huffington Post, you can get some great details. He's a great thinker and did a wonderful article. He's a regular contributor to Huffington Post.
Dr. McDougall, what is the title of that article at the Huffington Post?
Thank you.
Do you have it there?
All right. It's called, I'll put it up again. What do you think?
Diet and Health, Puzzling Past Paradox to Pure Understanding. Okay.
Yeah, that's on the Huffington Post.
People were asking about it.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, that's easy to look it up. Look at their Google of David Katz and Huffington Post and Pure or Pure Study or whatever. You'll find it. Anyway, Dr. Katz goes into a pretty decent discussion about, and that came out right afterwards. So the man put a tremendous amount of work into it really quickly. And, he's somebody who can rely on, David Katz. So those of you who want a more detailed discussion of some of the problems, believe me, there are many more, of some of the problems of the peer study, go to see David Katz's article. All right, so here we go. Let's see.
Wow.
This is the study we thought we were talking about. Peer study. Copyrighted, of course, so you got to go to the library and do it.
Right.
And then the other study I was telling you about, and let's see what else. Pardon me for having to thumb through papers here. I will do that. All right, let's see. Okay, so here is acknowledgments of the peer study. All right. You'll have to stop screen to look at it. You can see where it's supported by the Heart and Stroke Foundation, which is supported by the dairy industry. You can see it. I think you see it right there. Anyway, you'll find it at the end of the paper. Let's see. Supports from all these drug companies and stroke from the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Ontario. Yeah, that's the dairy industry. All right. I'm going to end this subject and get on to other topics. Here's the one, same journal, same online before standard publication issue in the Lancet, along with the peer study, is this study about fruit and vegetable intake and carbohydrates. You can see that. And it shows, well, let me just kind of read it for you. It shows high fruit and vegetable and legume, that's beans, consumption was associated with a lower risk of non-cardiovascular disease and total mortality. Why didn't you give this a lot of publicity? Excuse me. Does this have anything to do with money? Let me just thank them one more time. The dairy industry, thank you very much for supporting this study. Yes, you are so kind to the citizens. Oh, by the way, this may be in response to the fact that the Canada government official, recommendations have just changed as far as recommending to the Canadian citizens. They no longer recommend that people in Canada consume dairy. Well, I wonder if there's a reaction from the Canadian Dairy Association to that now upcoming official recommendation for Canadian citizens not to consume, or they're not recommending them to consume dairy anymore. Oh, that's a bad day for the Dairy Association.
Yeah,
that is also came out and said no colonoscopy. What's with Canada? National Health Service? Its government cares about its citizens more than its industries? Boy, I'll tell you, the Canadian government, they deserve their task taking. Make sure you, Dairy Association, don't forget Meat Association of Canada, make sure you get those official recommenders of a healthy diet. Make sure you put them in place. All right, Gustavo, that's too much.
Well, no, that was great, Dr. McDougall, as usual, as always. You always bring us down to this issue that is money, it's industries. It's not a conspiration against us. They are businesses, so they're here to make money.
Yeah, it's not. It's evil because, as they've taught biblically, in every religion, money is the root of all evil. It's just human nature. Nobody's out to get you. But in this case, we have, every newspaper, every TV talk show, everybody telling you we finally got proof it's good to eat carbohydrate. And that couldn't be Coca-Cola. And by the way, I should have keyed it up, but I didn't. Someday I'll show it again. I've shown it. It's an advertisement from the probably 70s by the Coca-Cola industry, telling you that drinking Coca-Cola was good for you because it was appetite satisfying and slimming. Now, that is true. Of course, Coca-Cola and other sugars will rot your teeth and raise your triglycerides, cause nutritional imbalances. But I did a comparison between Coca-Cola and milk. Folks, honestly, and I really mean it, and I hate to say this because some of you that's all you're going to hear. Oh, Dr. McDougall recommends kids drink Coca-Cola in the morning with their breakfast instead of milk. That's not what Dr. McDougall is saying. What Dr. McDougall is saying is that this commercial was right on, and when I did a comparison of Coca-Cola, the nutritional values, and milk, I did a whole thing on chocolate milk, nutrition in disguise. It's a good thing I'm ignored.
Well, I don't know if you're ignored.
I can be dangerous. You know how to deal with me, and that's ignore me.
Well, Dr. McDougall, we have so many questions, and that shows that you're not ignored. Well, I know what you mean by ignored, but so many of us here are the army you have created, and we are changing the world.
Unfortunately, Irma's joined our army.
Right.
And every newscast today and over the weekend and next week, it talks about the horrible destruction that's being created by the biggest storm that's ever been recorded in the world, most powerful storm. Every time they talk to you about that, in my opinion, on CNN and the rest of the news stations, they should follow by a note. But we can slow the warming changed, with a D, by changing our diet. That should be after every news report, or with every news report. You follow a diet based on starch, you can cut down on the progress of climate change. changed. I don't know if I said that clearly enough. Changed. Love that.
Right. Well, Dr. McDougall, how about if we do just a few questions?
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
I probably talked way too long.
No, it's fine. We'd love to hear you. We're going to end at well, your time. Well, my time is it's going to be 1:45.
Yeah, you folks are just recovering from a huge.
I know. Yeah.
Hurricane Harvey. Yeah, was that the one, or am I?
Yeah. Well, we didn't get anything here in Dallas, but it is devastating. It really is in Houston. All right. I don't know why someone wants to know how old I am, but I'm 53 years old. Okay. So, Dr. McDougall, first of all, I want to thank people because they're actually, many of them are following your advice and my advice to please go to your website, read the articles or the video, watch the videos first, so that then they can turn in questions that are a little more targeted and focused. And that will make these webinars way more interesting rather than just talking about why starches are good. So thank you, everyone. Please type. I know that a few of you have questions here, but if you go to the search, right, Dr. McDougall, the search.
Or hot topics.
Or the hot topics. You have written about just about everything.
Well, Mary and I have worked really hard. We've done this newsletter since 2002 online. Before that, we started it in 1986 as a paper newsletter. And so we provide a tremendous, there must be since 2002, 12 newsletters a year. You do the math, 150 newsletters up there. And they have topics like vitamin D and B12 and all kinds of things. And to have it in writing with the references would be a good place to start and to think carefully about any other questions I didn't answer, and there are many I haven't answered. And then ask us. But hey, Gustavo, we have a lot of newer people, and to hear the basic stuff, as long as our longtime followers appreciate the fact that we have a varied population we're talking to as far as
right. And you recently created on your website, isn't there like a 3-step or a 3-video program so people can get the very basics, right?
Well, I tell you, other than for Mary and I to come to your house and cook the food for you, which, by the way, we will do if you want to come to our Santa Rosa Medical and Health Clinic. We'll cook the food for you. Aside from that, I think we've done pretty much everything. And the last thing I put up was the quick start section, which for anybody that's new, just quick start gives you a little brief introduction and then a lecture that I love to give about, just kind of a general lecture about the food.
Right.
Dr. McDougall's color picture book on food poisoning. And that'll give you an orientation as far as, why you should do this. But that's not the important part of this quick start program. The important part is the how-to. And then the next 2 lectures that follow are how-to. Mary teaches you how to cook at home. And one of our favorite things to do in the past, when we were busy with other things, was to eat out. So we became experts on eating out. And she has a lecture there. So go there first. And if you want to know, or all kinds of initial information, we're there to help. And you'll see that.
Dr. McDougall, someone typed here a question about a comment you made maybe a week or 2 ago about it seemed to this person that you were discouraging people that have cancer to attend your 10-day program. Could you clarify that?
Oh, thank you very much. It's not discouraged. It's just that I don't want people to come under any false pretenses. If you have heart disease, clearly we can stop your angina in most cases and get you out of heart surgery. When we're dealing with cancers, we have good information, like my February 2015 newsletter, which shows the American Cancer Society supports people with cancer being advised to eat a diet in our direction, and it will cause them to live longer. That's my February 2015 newsletter. So I believe that the diet will make a huge difference in quantity of life. Now, I'm sure it makes a huge difference in quality, but I also believe it makes a difference in quantity. But I don't want people all over the country thinking, oh boy, there's another cancer clinic. I'll go there. He's promising he's going to cure me. I don't want anybody to come under any false pretenses. We have in our program, let's just say the last program, which was just a couple weeks ago, there were 55 participants, 56 maybe. Probably 3 to 5, maybe 6 people with various kinds of cancer. They're there for the cancer. And it's not that we discourage them. I do help them. I have a tremendous amount to say about breast cancer. But you can, of course, read that on my website. So we're happy to have people come with cancer. I definitely believe we will help them, but I don't want them to come under any false pretenses, maybe with the attitude, oh, I have found another crack clinic, and this one is north of the Mexican-U.S. border, and yeah. That's what I meant by discouraging. I do not want to get known as this new lateral clinic or new magic clinic for cancer. But yeah, we can help you, and yeah, we'd be happy to have you come.
All right, very good, very good. Dr. McDougall, another question of someone that has been diagnosed with underactive thyroid. The person is saying, is it possible to use diet and be free of medication for this condition?
No.
Good. Okay, let's move on to another question.
First of all, many people are told they have low thyroid, and they don't. When early in my medical career, if you were tired or you're overweight, then it could be your thyroid. Even if the tests were normal, it'll put you on a little thyroid. There are people who put people on thyroid medication based upon their armpit temperatures. Sometimes labs make mistakes and they come back with a TSH level, which is the thyroid test I use, that suggests they have low thyroid. And it was wrong. So I always repeat the tests. So you may be able to get off your thyroid because you were put on for the wrong reasons. You just didn't have hypothyroidism. But if you really did have hypothyroidism, which is due to an autoimmune thyroiditis, is what the doctor will tell you, you have autoimmune thyroiditis, which means the body attacks the thyroid gland. Or it's also called Hashimoto's thyroiditis because Hashimoto from Japan discovered it in the early 1900s, or at least discovered enough to put his name on it. So once the gland is killed by an autoimmune reaction, which I believe, I hate to say this, but I will, I believe is caused by a molecular mimicry reaction between eating foreign thyroid glands and your immune system. How do you eat foreign thyroid glands? Well, they come from pigs and cows. So, and they're called sausages and hot dogs, lunch meat. And so you eat these pig and thyroid glands. Believe me, there are thyroid glands in those products. And the body reacts and says, this is foreign thyroid. I'll make an antibody to this foreign thyroid. If it's from a pig or a cow. But the antibody is non-specific enough to not just attack the pig and cow thyroid proteins that are in your blood, but it also attacks the human thyroid, which is your gland, and destroys it. Oh, it's destroyed. It's destroyed. It's not going to come back. So you must take supplementation. And what I recommend is levothyroxine, which is synthetic thyroid. People say, well, you're a natural doctor. You should be recommending natural stuff. Well, I don't recommend natural thyroid because what is it? It's pig and cow thyroid glands ground up. Makes no sense for a whole bunch of reasons, including transmitting microbes and leukemia viruses and all cancer virus, all kinds of things. So I don't prescribe a form of natural thyroid. Armor was a name for one of them. There are probably new ones now, or maybe that one's gone. I prescribe levothyroxine. Well, probably in part because that's the way I was trained. But I put people on sufficient levothyroxine to normalize their TSH level. And, they need a refill from a doctor once a year and maybe check their TSH once a year. But sorry, it ain't going to grow back. I don't care if you eat the Atkins diet or the McDougall diet. It's not growing back.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Dr. McDougall. So Someone here was asking a question about something that has caught my attention when I see people that have very big stomachs and bellies. No, they not only look fat, but it's sometimes it looks like the person is really like bloated.
Pregnant.
So,
Pregnant.
right. Especially men. I mean, and we're not trying to make fun, but I mean, it looks strange. And so this person says, are huge bellies partial inflammation as well as fat?
Well, for Mary and I, over 70 years old, somehow it didn't become a natural part of our lives. I mean, I would stand up and show you my stomach, but it's not necessary. You can find a picture of that in my May 2016 newsletter. But anyway, no, it's not a natural thing to happen, to grow these pregnancy bellies. It's hard, even for Mary and I. We'll be meeting new people, or we'll see somebody, let's say a woman, and we'll say, boy, we better be careful about saying congratulations on your pregnancy, because half the time when we say that, we offend them, because the female is really not pregnant, but she looks like it. And worse yet is that men, I mean, it's not like a few men, but maybe half of the men walking down the street, if you see a profile of them, they look like they're pregnant.
Yes, and breasts.
Is that attractive to look like a pregnant woman as a man? Wow.
Yeah. Now,
it's because of the food, and it's because of the diet, and it's because of all the fat and the hormones and all kinds of things. You accumulate belly fat, and men, you look like a pregnant woman, and you should be ashamed to go outside looking like that. I mean, you might even eat rice and help global warming at the same time.
Right. Exactly. It is. Well, thank you. Great. Dr. McDougall, someone also had a question about fat-soluble vitamins. Of course, people think that if you eat the McDougall plan, you're not eating any fat, when in fact, tell us about how so many foods have enough fat.
Well, this comes out in references in the first book that I wrote called the McDougall Plan. There's no such thing as fatty acid deficiency on any natural diet. So there's always enough fat, like rice has 5% fat. Anyway, there's always enough fat to provide the necessary fat to absorb any fat-soluble vitamins, because there's no such thing as fatty acid deficiency in natural populations, and no diseases of fatty acid deficiency in people who have sufficient food, no vitamin diseases. The only case of fatty acid deficiency I can think about was an experimental study that was done probably in the 30s, when they started introducing infant formula instead of breast milk. And they introduced infant formula, and it was cow-based formula, of course. It was high fat, of course. And the kids got fat, the babies got fat, of course, as they still do today. And so they said, well, let's feed them low fat, no fat. Just give them milk formula and see what happens. Well, the children developed fatty acid deficiency, cracks in their mouths and skin, typical, fatty acid deficiency symptoms. But that's the only case of fatty acid deficiency I've ever heard of. And same thing with fat-soluble vitamins. There's no such thing on a natural diet. There's plenty of fat. But it's a sales pitch.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, let's move on here to another topic, Dr. McDougall. I think we have someone that has a good question about zinc and iron. If your blood work comes back and shows that zinc and iron levels are low, what foods, if any, would you suggest that they increase more of?
Well, certainly what I recommend in terms of starch-based diet is loaded with iron and zinc. Again, the only case of zinc deficiency I can think of in all my literature research was in Iran, like 50 years ago. They developed in some rural populations zinc deficiency, and it was found to be due to leavening of the bread. It somehow caused the bread to absorb the zinc, and they developed zinc deficiency. Once they stopped using leavened bread, the zinc deficiency problem went away. It's the only case of zinc deficiency I can think of. Iron deficiency, my recommendation is stop dairy. Dairy foods are the #1 cause of iron deficiency in young children, and probably in adults too, but let's not go fully into that. But it's what happens is the dairy has no iron, virtually no iron, and the calcium and phosphorus in the dairy form complexes from iron. Say you get from eating beef or green beans, it forms insoluble complexes with the calcium and phosphorus with the iron so that it's not absorbed. So you develop iron deficiency from eating dairy. Plus, the dairy causes bleeding. We know this in children for sure. I mean, we do it in adults too, but I want to make sure that I'm clarifying that the research I'm talking about has been done in children. It causes bleeding of their guts, and so they bleed out. As far as adults go, let's just mention the same problem with iron absorption by drinking milk that occurs in children, same problem. The other thing is you end up with diseases caused by eating the rich Western diet, like hemorrhoids that bleed, or ulcers that bleed, or colon cancer that bleeds, or heavy menstrual periods. Whoa. Is that a big topic? We should just do a whole seminar on that. Is the amount of flow and the time of flow of your menstrual period is directly a consequence of what you eat and how fat you are. Yeah, if you change your diet, your menstrual flow becomes less in amount and in also number of days. Heavy menstrual periods go away as you lose weight. This is even more profoundly affected in terms of heavy menstrual periods. So, yeah, you want to know what foods to eat to help with iron deficiency? Don't eat dairy. Otherwise, fruits and vegetables are loaded with iron and zinc.
Right, right. Thank you, Dr. McDougall. Someone here has a doctor in Kaiser, a Kaiser doctor, and this person writes to say that he has a cholesterol of 117, and everything seems to be fine. Triglycerides 143, HDL 37, LDL 51, etc. But his doctor still says that he needs to stay on Lipitor because lipids are the only cause of heart disease. So this person says, what is he talking about? Time for yet another doctor?
In part. Then again, this doctor may be making the right decision. He's probably on a little bit too much Lipitor. My goal is to get people, when I have them on statins, at a cholesterol around 150. I think you can get too low. Remember, cholesterol is the precursor of your sex hormones and also of what goes to form vitamin D. So you need some cholesterol. Your body always makes enough, unless you have something serious wrong, like serious liver disease, etc. So if you have low cholesterol and are on no statins, great. If you're on statins, then I believe you said 117 was his, that may be a little too much Lipitor. And besides that, the effect of 40 milligrams of Lipitor versus 20 is not much different, or 10. Not much different between 10 and 40 milligrams, the effect on total cholesterol. So the doctor may be making the right decision. The patient should be on a statin, particularly if the patient has a history of cardiovascular disease, stroke or heart attacks, or surgery. I would have them on statins. I would use pravastatin, which is also called Pravachol, because I believe it's the safest, but Lipitor is not bad. I sometimes use Lipitor. So anyway, it may have been an appropriate decision by the doctor. And then again, there are doctors that think that we ought to put statins in drinking water. You may have one of those doctors, and then it may not be indicated for you to be on statins. Well, I'll just refer you to my May 2013 newsletter for a discussion on who should be on statins. Find another doctor. If you don't have the confidence in this doctor, that's sometimes the best choice.
Right.
Why get in a fight?
Why? Yeah. There's no point.
Why get in a fight with your provider? I mean, you go to buy paint at a paint store. Does the owner of the paint store fight with the customer? Tell the customer, like, does it treat the customer, the owner of, say, your paint store, treat you like your doctor treats you? You would never go back to that paint store. Well, if doctors treat you without proper respect, you think there's something wrong. Well, and then they turn around and criticize you and blame you. Man, that's not good business.
No, it isn't. No. Well, Dr. McDougall, we have a lot of questions, but thankfully we can tell people to at least try to go to your website, to their search engine, type the topic that they want, read it, and then if they don't find it, to submit a question for you, well, 2 weeks from today. Right. I do want to mention that next week we have Dr. Lyle. Right. And let me tell you, Dr. Lyle's lectures are all brilliant. But last weekend, I heard him give this lecture for the first time about the cycle of binging and overeating at night. And I think everybody in the world needs to hear that brilliant lecture. So I encourage everybody to run to your website right now and sign up for that webinar next week, because it's going to change your life. So anyway,
Dr. Lyle will likewise be live and presenting probably that lecture
this week. That's right.
Next week. It's like
tomorrow. Yeah. Yes. Very good.
Yeah, Doctor, we have such a brilliant staff of people.
You do.
And why we haven't taken over the world. Sometimes, except my July 2017 newsletter, I wrote to you about my frustrations. And
yes. Very good.
Believe me, I don't understand why the world has not come around to this kind of thinking. Enjoy Irma.
I think I have at least, and I've been thinking about that a lot, Dr. McDougall. I just, the more I'm out there, I travel a lot and I'm around people, and I've noticed that it's vicious out there. I mean, the confusion that these companies and industries have created in our society, we have people believing the most absurd things. And so they have accomplished the task. They have gotten everyone confused.
Yep, i.e. Pure Study. And I just told you, the dairy industry is behind this, and so are the drug companies. And, when they make a big deal out of eating more carbohydrate, which could be soda pop, could be eating a full table sugar. And they make that the big headlines. Don't eat carbohydrate. And of course, people think potatoes, rice, corn.
Right.
But they really mean candy bars and soda pops.
Yeah.
You just use the Pure Study. I mean, it's made such an impact. I can't stop getting letters from people. And,
right. Well, and of course, people love to hear good news about their bad habits.
Well, they do.
Also, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, and I think I've settled it all, folks. Just tell any of your friends who say, the Pure Study, it proves it, I'm all confused, say, carry this around with you. Say, the Pure Study, the Heart and Stroke Foundation, is supported by the dairy industry. Yeah. It's the dairy industry.
And that is just one of the many studies that are supported by the industry.
And you know what? And even this study, the Pure Study, we've not even come close to finding out where the real financial interest came from. I suppose knowing the drug industries and the dairy industry paid for it is good enough, but there's, I'm sure, a lot more industry ties behind it. A lot more money than you would ever realize. In fact, I'd have to say, based on what I understand, is this was clearly an advertisement, a plot, a ploy by the food industry to further confuse the consumer. This was purposely done. People who hurt you and take your money are called criminals. They're called criminals, and we do things with criminals to get them out of society. Who's going to start dealing with the criminals? How much heart disease and cancer has been caused by this confusion? Now, how many children have continued to suffer from obesity and social disgrace because of their health and appearance because of this advertisement? They did this on purpose. People who take your money and hurt you are called criminals. I gotta stop getting me carried away.
Okay, let's stop with McDougall. We'll continue next time.
I haven't done yet.
Before we say something that I have to edit later.
So far, I'm okay with everything.
You're fine. You're great. Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks, and have a wonderful weekend.
This weekend, right? We'll be around, and we look forward to.
We look forward to you telling us all about it next time.
Telling you everything I've learned in the last.
Yes.
It's been a while.
Okay.
I think I'm close. I may not be right, but I'm close. See you later.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you for helping us share this.
Bye-bye.